All right, in today's lesson, we're going to talk about simplifying rational expressions. A rational number is just a number that can be written as a fraction. So all we're going to be doing is just simplifying fractions. However, we're not going to be doing simplifying fractions like you used to do back in middle school or elementary school. Remember, you would do like, hey, what is 4 over 6? You would figure out what is a factor that goes into both 4 and 6. You would divide them both by 2, and then you would simplify this to get 2/3. What we're doing today, you still need to use this concept that I just went over, but we also need to simplify exponents. So since we're talking about fractions, let's please remember that when you have a fractional exponent, or you have an exponent in a fraction, like x to the 6th over x to the 4th, all you're doing is subtracting 6 minus 4 and getting x to the 2nd. So if you can subtract, and if you can simplify fractions, you should be good for this first part of the lesson, okay? The front side of this worksheet is very, very easy. I'm only going to do a few examples with you guys, and then I'm going to move on to the stuff that is a little bit more intense. So I'm going to just do like the first 3 problems with you. Okay, number 1, 18 over 27. Okay, well, 18 over 27, they're both divisible by 9. 18 divided by 9 is 2. 27 divided by 9 is 3. And then you have x to the 6th over x to the 4th. Well, 6 minus 4 is 2, and it's positive, so it stays in the numerator of the fraction. So it's 2x squared over 3. For the next one, 3 over 12 reduces to 1 over 4. X squared over x to the first is really x. Now, technically it is 1/4 of x, but we don't like to write 1x anymore, so we're going to erase the 1 and just say the answer is x over 4. Please make sure that you are not writing 1x or 1y. Okay, unless 1 is the only thing in the numerator, do not write 1. Number 3, I would divide them both by 5. So you'd get 2 over negative 3. And now look at your exponents. You have 3 over 1. 3 minus 1 is positive 2. So A2 up here. And now you have, this is really a 1. 1 minus 3 is negative 2. If it's a negative exponent, it needs to stay in the denominator of the fraction. So this would just become b squared. Remember, the negative becomes positive. It stays in the denominator of the fraction. I'll do another one like that. Let me do number... we could do number 7. Okay, I would divide these both by 4. So you would get 4 over 5. That's the first thing. I like to simplify everything separately and then figure out where everything goes. So a to the 2nd over a to the 7th is a to the negative 5. Whenever you have this negative fraction, you need to put it in the denominator with a positive exponent. Then it's going to be b to the 3rd over b squared. So that's just b, right? 3 minus 2 is 1. We're not writing the little 1 here. 4 minus 2 is positive 2, so this becomes c squared. So any negatives, you automatically drop them down into the denominator, take the negative away, and keep simplifying. Okay, so that's that side of the worksheet. It's very straightforward. You're really just simplifying fractions and then taking your rules of exponents and subtracting. Okay? Now, in this one, we're going to have to do a little bit of factoring, which is all the stuff that we just did before, including the difference of squares and the sum of cubes and all of that stuff, okay? There may be times where you just factor out a GCF, so like number 1. I would take, you don't need to take it out of the entire fraction, but out of one part of this fraction. I know I can remove or factor out a 2, leaving me with x plus 3. And I know that in the the denominator, I can take out 4. And if I factor out 4, I'm left with x minus 3. Now, the x plus 3 and the x minus 3, those will not simplify at all. But 2 over 4 becomes 1 over 2. Remember, we're not writing the 1, but it technically is 1x plus 3 over 2x minus 3. You do not redistribute the 2. So let me erase the 1. We're not writing 1 anymore. Okay? So that would be the first one. Number 2, you are going to have to factor. Remember, anytime you see anything squared, you should try to factor out that quadratic. So if I look at number 2, I can take x squared plus 9x plus 20. I can factor this into factors of 20. That could somehow give me 9. They would have to be 4 and 5. The only way for me to get x squared would just to be x and x, and they both have to be positive. From the denominator, I'm going to factor out a 2. If I factor out 2, I'm left with x plus 4. Now, look at this. Whenever you have a fraction, if you had 6 times 2 over 6, for example, right? 6 times 2 is 12. 12 over 6 is 2. In the beginning of this problem, I could have just taken these numbers and I could have turned them into 1. We're not going to use the word cancel. That is a very bad curse word. Things do not cancel. In a fraction, when you have a number in the numerator and a number in the denominator, they simply become 1. 6 over 6 becomes 1 because 6 divided by 6 is 1. So in this case, the x plus 4 and the x plus 4 become 1, leaving you with 1 x plus 5 and 1, 2, which is just 2. Okay, let me do another one where you have to factor. I'll do number 8. Number 8, you're going to have to factor the numerator and the denominator. Notice I'm not saying the top and the bottom. Those are also very, very bad math curses. So look at number 8. If I factor out the numerator, I need the factors of 12 that are 1 away from each other. X squared is x times x. The factors of 12 that are 1 away are 4 and 3. And now I have to figure out which one is positive, which one is negative. So that's minus 4 plus 3. In the denominator, I would take this. The factors of 8 that are 2 away from each other are 4 and 2. The 4 has to be negative, the x has to be positive. Hey look, x minus 4, this becomes 1. So you're left with x plus 3 over x plus 2. Okay, go ahead, do the rest of these. I will put the answers for these up in the Google Classroom. When you're done doing these, if there's enough time today, you guys can do the second worksheet. It's just on the Google Classroom. I didn't make a copy for you guys. You guys can do the work on a separate piece of paper, and then I may or may not collect it or just pick a few problems to choose. Okay?